Hello, it's the Baroque Prawn, and this is the SteelSeries Siberia 800 with Dolby Digital and Dolby Pro Logic 2X. This is a superb offering from SteelSeries in a wireless gaming headset with virtual 7.1 surround sound. It is an expensive piece of kit. You are looking at nearly £300 at full retail price, but it is currently retailing for around £214 on Amazon. Getting the SteelSeries out of the box was blown away straight away by the design and build quality and the flexibility of this. It is a gaming headset that is packed with options. There are a number of cables within the box that allow you to use this headset on a variety of devices, including everything from PlayStation 4 to Xbox One to PC. It has optical, analog, and USB inputs into the amplifying box that comes with it, which is impressive for a start, and a couple of inputs on the headset itself to allow you to engage in chat with people on PlayStation and Xbox from a distance, so you can plug this straight into a controller, which is handy. I've not tried that. I am a PC gamer. This is a PC gaming headset review, essentially. The headset is a well-built, good quality design, a nice, strong design, very tight. Sits tight on your head. You can see it looks like my head's being squished, but it isn't. It's just very comfortable, which is good because it keeps the sound immersive and uh, gives it that extra bit of quality. I have found that the leather ear cups are a bit hot, but if you had quickly take it off to have a look at the build quality, you can see there's some stitching in there, high quality stitching, and just a nice solid design to it. I think that was probably the highlight of getting it out of the box to start with, was seeing all the things that come with it and just the quality and putting it on for the first time. Also, starting to listen with it was impressive. The sound is excellent in Windows, listening to music and watching movies, and it's a simple concept, but I mean, how many gaming headsets have an optical input? Not very many. So I've got an optical cable running from my computer into the box right now, and it is running Dolby Digital, and that's great for listening to content that supports that and allows for full use of the 7.1 surround sound. It's a good bassy sound, which isn't an issue. This is still a virtual surround sound headset, though. It is not a proper headset with all the drivers in it necessary to replicate a proper surround sound system setup in your living room, for example, but it's still excellent. The box that it comes with has a number of interesting features. Unfortunately, it's not very easy to show you that right now, but one of the highlights is in the side is a battery, spare battery. So the batteries are hot swappable, which means that I can twist this, take it off. You can see here there's a battery in there that's currently being used. You can then put that back on. But if the batteries get low, you can take that battery out and put it back into the side of the amplifying box and take that battery out and replace it. So it's easy to swap. Now, SteelSeries claim you can get 20 hours of playback from the battery. I found it was a lot shorter than that. It felt like 10, but it was probably more realistically about 15 hours before we had to change it. Not a big deal, but the downside is you can't plug a cable in and be constant. You do have that downtime between quickly swapping them out, which doesn't sound like a problem, but when you're in the middle of a heated battle in a game where you can't pause an online game or something, you've got that frustration of losing the audio temporarily, and we just found that was a problem and a bit of an annoyance. The other issue with the audio is the 7.1 is excellent in movies, but it is not that great in games. It is good Don't get me wrong, it's very good quality in games, and it does sound impressive, and I was blown away when I first started using it. But as I started to use it more, I realised that the positional audio isn't quite as good as I've seen with other headsets like the Asus Centurion, the Asus Strix 7.1, the Void Pro USB, the Sennheiser PC37 3D. Those have much better positional audio, so you can tell where people are, where enemies are coming from, where the threats are, those sorts of things, which is important. And the whole point in a surround sound headset. What is the point in a surround sound gaming headset if you can't tell where enemies are? Why would you want it? Other points of interest is the microphone retracts fully into the headset. Goes all the way in. This doesn't have a garish design either. It's quite subtle, so retracting that basically makes it look like a set of high quality headphones. You haven't got the garish RGB or big bold colours, and I like that. It's subtle, understated, but obviously a good build design quality. And the mic is also a good quality, as you can tell from the audio here. I found that you can easily move it out of the way if you need to. It's very flexible. It looks thin, but it's a strong cable design there, and the retraction of it, there's a danger, there's a concern that maybe after a while keep retracting it, it's going to cause it a problem, but I don't know. Only a long-term use would find out whether that's the case or not. The batteries that I talked about before are 1000 milliamp, so they're not huge, and you do have to swap them out regularly, and there is another concern that maybe over time they'll degrade. I don't know how many times you can charge those batteries up, but if you keep having to swap them and keep having to charge them, eventually they're going to lose their charge, and then you're either going to have to replace them or you're going to be swapping them out more often, which is going to be frustrating. And there's no option here to insert a cable. You can't be wired some days. If you look at like the Corsair Void, if you look at the bottom of that, that has a USB input on it. So when the battery runs out on that, you could just plug it in, and that's how it recharges. But you could also just carry on using it wired if you wanted to for a while, and you can't do that with the SteelSeries. You don't have that option. The wireless nature of it is interesting. That's another thing that we tested. SteelSeries claim that you can get 12 meters or 40-foot straight line audio out of it without it disconnecting. In reality, I found it was more like 5 meters. In testing it versus other headsets like the Corsair Void Pro wireless and the Logitech G533, that was a wireless headset as well. The range, it just isn't as good. I found I could only maybe get through one room before it started disconnecting, whereas those other headsets I could probably make it around most of the house. So that's a downside there. It's not a major problem. There does seem to be a strange thing with the microphone where there's a constant listening tone, which is basically like when you go into Windows settings and you tick to listen to this device, you can then hear yourself. That happens very faintly on this microphone, and it only seems to be when it's too close to your mouth you can suddenly hear your voice inside. There's no way to turn that off in Windows or in the settings that I've seen. Not a major issue because it has to be close, you have to be loud, or you have to be breathing really heavily. But I think perhaps it is to help you be able to hear yourself, because of the closed cut design and the really good quality leather padding. You can't hear much of the external world. It's not an active noise cancelling headset, and it's not sold as a noise cancelling headset, but because of the size of the ear cups and the way they sit over your head and they're squashed in nicely onto your head, nice and tight and comfortable, you just don't hear as much sound. So maybe that's the reason why, so you can still hear your own voice without having to shout, because it's very odd when you can't. That's interesting. That actually proves a point. It reminds me of something. The headset just disconnected itself while I was talking there on the video. Now, the headset does that when it thinks it's not in use. I'm currently recording a video and it's just turned itself off. I've seen similar issues with the headset or two when playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, where if I stayed still for too long, suddenly the game audio would cut out. And there's a constant noise in that game where you have sounds in the background, and I've never experienced it with any other headset, and I put 300 hours into that game. Um, I've never seen it in any other headset where the sort of sounds from the background, like cars going by, the sea lapping, whatever, it would just be dead silence. It would completely cut out, and it really threw me. And it only happened a couple of times, but that mixed with the position audio just makes me think there's something a little bit off with the way it handles the virtual surround sound, which is quite frustrating because it's a very good headset otherwise. And like I said, the surround sound's good, the sound quality is good, the bass is good, but having audio cut out or having the positional audio being wrong, I mean, if you're playing first person shooters and you can't hear where people are coming from and you don't get that audio right, you know, if I think an enemy's in front when they're actually behind, then it's not useful, and that's frustrating, and that would maybe put me off spending this much money. However, it is extremely good in every other aspect. It's so flexible, it's very comfortable. The microphone is really good. The build quality is undeniably awesome, and it should be for that amount of money, to be honest, because it's not cheap. It's probably one of the most expensive headsets I've seen, and one of the most expensive out there to buy. And it only has a few flaws, so it probably would end up on the one of the recommended. If I was to have a list of best recommended headsets, it would probably be high up there. But that does depend heavily on whether you're a first-person shooter player and whether you play games where it's essential that you know where enemies are coming from. Because I'd hate to recommend it and then you say, "Oh, I can't hear. Well, I can't hear where these enemies are." And I've had that issue more than once, and it's frustrating. And yes, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is a beta, but I played it with lots of other headsets and not had the same issue. So there we go. The conclusion is this is probably 8 out of 10 stars. It's a very good headset. It's well worth checking out. It's very comfortable, very good audio, lots of flexibility, excellent inputs. Optical input is impressive. Battery life is poor. Mic is excellent. Positional audio isn't great, but otherwise, really superb build from SteelSeries. Highly recommended. Very good.